This is episode 33 of the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I'm Carly Kade, and today I'm speaking with Laurie Berglie. Laurie is the best-selling author of 3 equestrian romance novels, Where the Bluegrass Grows, Kicking On, and Taking Off. Where the Bluegrass Grows was published in 2016 and takes place in gorgeous Lexington, Kentucky. It features main character Molly Sorensen. Kicking On, a semi-sequel, was published in 2019 and takes place in Maryland's horse country. It is Macy Holland's first story. Finally, Taking Off, also published in 2019, takes readers south to the Plains, Virginia, where Erin Sorensen takes center stage. All of Laurie's books contain a host of both horse and human characters, plenty of equestrian action, and some steamy love scenes. Laurie is also a freelance writer and editor, and the majority of her equestrian articles can be found in Horse and Style magazine. She has also copy-edited numerous novels for other independent authors. When not reading or writing horse books, Laurie is hard at work taking care of her many animals that reside on her farm in northern Maryland, where she lives with her husband, James. Now, let's get into the interview. Welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast, a podcast featuring interviews with equestrian authors who love all things horses and writing about them. In each episode, you'll hear inspirational stories from horsebook authors, including writing advice and marketing tips to help you write your very own horsebook. If you're an author, aspire to be an author, or simply love horsebooks, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Carly Kade, and creative writing makes my spurs jingle. Welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight Show. I'm Carly Kade, and today I am so excited to have my friend and fellow author, Laurie Berglie, on the show today. Hi, Laurie.
Hi, Carly. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited. Laurie is the woman behind the very successful blog, Maryland Equestrian, and she's written several books, which we're going to get into today here. But I always like to kick off the interviews with asking how your love affair with horses began.
I grew up with horses in my backyard. My mom always rode. She always had horses. And we grew up on a small farm. And so I always had 1 or 2 horses right outside, which was just, a dream come true for a horse crazy kid. I don't know. I think that I would have loved horses no matter what, even if my mom hadn't ridden. But of course, having them right there at my fingertips, helped to perpetuate the horse crazy. So I don't think I have a single memory of myself as a child not loving horses and being horse crazy. So I think it was just always a part of me since birth, really.
Oh, that's amazing. And what a cool bond to be able to share with your mom, a love of horses. I imagine there were horse shows that you went to together and you got to do trail rides together.
Trail rides. I was in 4-H, and then my younger sister rides as well. So the 3 of us were always outside doing something, riding, showing a little bit during the summers. And then we lived next door to a state park growing up. So there's lots of trail riding as well.
Oh, that's so cool. That's like the ultimate dream for a horse loving anyone, Oh, that's
right.
So great. And, this is a great segue. You own your own farm in Maryland, and I'd love to hear about your furry friends, including your newest addition to your herd. You have a new horse.
My husband and I have a small farm in Maryland, not too far from where I grew up. We have about 5 acres, and we have 8 animals. 1 very elusive, very old indoor cat, which she doesn't make my Instagram very often because she's hard to catch. I have 2 barn cats who are fantastic. They get locked up in my tack room every night, so they're safe. I don't have to worry about them being eaten by anything. I have 2 dogs, and then I have 3 horses. And so one of them I got in November. So he's my new one. They are all thoroughbreds. 2 of them raced. My new one was trained to race, but he never made it to the track. He is 5. He is huge. He's 17.1.
Oh, wow.
And, he's quite a bit bigger than I was hoping for. But I'm almost 5'9", so it works out. We're both pretty tall, but we're taking things slow. He's been a real good boy so far, but, no rush. We're just going to take his training, day by day, and hopefully do some hunter jumper stuff with him.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah. And anyone who follows Maryland Equestrian on Instagram knows just how active you are with your fur babies, and they get to see pictures of you showing. And we're going to talk about your Instagram channel and Maryland Equestrian a little bit here as we move into the interview. But I imagine your thoroughbreds there at home help inspire your books. So I wanted to start the interview off talking about your books. Why horse books? Like, how did you get started? What excites you about
Mhm.
writing horse books? Talk to us a
Right.
little bit about
So I am an active reader, have always been an active reader, and I read anything and everything for the most part. But always, as a horse person, a horse crazy person, I would, naturally gravitate to horse books. And the equestrian romance are my favorite to read. So I wanted to read more. Exactly, right?
that.
So I wanted to read more of my favorite things. So I decided, why not try to write one? When I first got started, I would always write a little bit just for fun. Like I was always working on some project, fiction related project, but nothing ever really stuck. And then I started writing what became Where the Bluegrass Grows. And that was just the first piece of writing that really stuck. And I probably worked on it, I'd say at least 5 years before I finished the first draft. Not even publish it, but just the first draft. And so it took a long time. I was working full time at a job that I had to commute, I think about an hour and a half each way. So, and then I had the horses and my husband in the house and all that kind of stuff. So writing just kind of took a back seat, and it would be months and months sometimes between picking it up and working on it. But I just stuck with it. And I got to the point where I really liked my characters, and I really wanted to continue their story and see what happened and see where it went. And so that's just kind of how it developed. And I ended up wanting to write about what I wanted to read. So that's how it started.
That's awesome. And I share that with you. Like I think with first books, it always takes a little longer, and
Mhm.
it often takes a back seat, and sometimes you
Yep.
shelf it because self-doubt creeps in. And I think everybody's first
Yep.
book takes a while to reach that point. But I do believe that if you got a story to tell, like the characters and the muse will not leave
Hmm.
you alone, which is probably
Right.
why you kept circling back to that book.
Yep.
And I
Exactly.
totally feel you on, writing about what you like to read. We are
Hmm.
both equestrian romance authors, which makes me
Yep.
so happy. We both write for adults, which is
Yep.
kind of a little bit of a rarity um, in our niche. And I love it. I've got a fellow equestrian romance author
No.
going on. So, tell us about your books for horse lovers. I love your series. I love your books. And I just finished actually reading the third book, which I'm gonna ask you to talk about. And it was so good. I couldn't put it down. I read it in a
Thank
day,
you.
and I feel like we have a similar kind of journey, because we're both now 3 books deep,
Yep.
and we both have been hanging out and talking with each other, and building our author friendship, and which has then turned into a friendship. And we both talk about how our writing is getting stronger and better with each book that we write. And I loved your first book, I loved your second book, I loved your third book, but it's been so fun to follow your journey and watch your writing grow. Tell us about your book series for horse lovers.
Sure, absolutely. So my first book that I was talking about is Where the Bluegrass Grows. So I published this in 2016, and this is the one that probably start to finish, start to actual publication date was maybe 7 years in the making. There are things that I wrote in here that were so outdated by the time I actually published it that I had to go back and change things just about social media and like a reference to Facebook, that things that they didn't do that anymore. So I had to like go and change that real quick. One is Molly Sorensen's story. That's my main character. Molly is a fiction writer. And she is also a horse girl. She lives in Maryland. And then she breaks up with a boyfriend. She just kind of has enough of her current situation, and she decides to go to Kentucky for the summer and spend the summer with her best friend Macy. So then she meets someone there, and then it's kind of just the ups and downs of a new relationship and whatnot. And then as I was writing that story, I really fell in love with the character of Macy. She was totally different from Molly, similar background, but just a completely different person, still a horse person. And then as I was writing Where the Bluegrass Grows, I decided I think my next book's going to be about Macy. And so that wasn't something that I had initially wanted. I didn't even know if I was going to have a series. I didn't know that the characters were going to change. It was just something that happened very organically because I just really liked her character and I felt she deserved her own story. So Macy's story is Kicking On, which I published in January of 2019. So a couple years in between. I did end up writing this a little faster, still took about 3 years. So that was, not super quick, but quicker than Where the Bluegrass Grows. And then kind of similar to when I was writing this one, another one of my supporting characters, Erin, um, I really fell in love with her. And again, she's, has this interesting story. And then as I was working my way through Kicking On, I was like, well, my next one's going to be about Erin. And then this is taking off. And I published this in, I think it was November of 19. So I actually published 2 in 1 year. This one I started writing immediately after publishing Kicking On. And I finished it, the first draft, in 6 months, which is a record. I will never hit that again. I was really proud of myself, but and then so edited and got everything else together, and then published it just a couple months later. So those 2 went out in 2019. I have a lot of little projects in the works, but I don't have anything on the calendar right now for publication. So.
Well, that's cool. After reading the 3rd book, Taking Off, I am now chomping at the bit for the next book because I'm really interested to see where you take those characters. That's so cool. So, you said you wrote 2 books in 1 year, and you got one, written, edited, and out in 6 months. That is amazing.
Thanks.
Tell us how you did that. Did you have a writing routine? Did you put some things to the side and just really focus? Because that's fast. I think I'm lucky if I get, after the hurdle of the first book, I'm lucky to, get 1 book out a year. So I think I'd love to hear what your strategy was.
Yes. So after I published Kicking On, I got a lot of very positive, very immediate feedback. And so I'm sure when you get that praise and, people are like, oh my God, I love this. What's next? Like, when's the next one coming? Like, that is so motivating. Mm-hmm. And so I was just like, everybody wants the 3rd book. I just got to do it. I just got to, force myself to do it. And last year, I'm self-employed, as you know. And so last year, right around that time, business was busy, but we seemed to be in not a lull per se, but I had a little bit more time to write than I do now. And so what I tried to do is every morning was, I did work for our company. And then in the afternoon, I tried to set some time aside to write. And I made a brief outline, and I just really tried to stick to writing 1 to 3 hours every single day. And so I tried to touch the book in some way, whether it was editing or whatever, almost every day. It didn't always work, but because I was really so motivated and so focused, and I had a little extra, free time, I was able to really push through it. Things are a little different now. I don't have quite as much time. I'm trying to make more time, but it's just been hard. But like I said, I think I was just like on that high from publishing Kicking On, and I was like, I'm just going to ride this wave and, write as much as I can while I have as much time as I do. And then, it does get easier too.
It does.
I don't know if you've noticed that, but
it does.
Writing that first book, it was like almost torture. And then the second one got easier, but by the 3rd, it's like you really get into that groove and you're just like, okay, this is not as hard as, the first one was. And you're able to kind of push it out a little quicker.
Yeah. And I think it's because you now that you can do it. Right. Yeah. And then you also, I think, through the process of writing a couple books, you learn what routines work for you. What I'm hearing is you were very diligent about routine and carving that 1 to 2 hours every day to touch your book. And I'm the same way. If I'm I try and touch my story every day because then it keeps the momentum going forward. And even when you're not at your desk sitting and writing, if you touch it every day, you're still thinking about it. So I'll make little notes to myself throughout the day and move myself forward faster. So I love that you explained that. And I've been watching your book and the comments that you're getting on your social media channels, and I know that people are really liking this one too, and they're saying, when's the next one coming? So there's your incentive.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, that's really exciting. And I really love the covers. I know that you recently recovered Where the
Yeah.
Bluegrass Grows, and then they all kind of have this really beautiful imagery. So talk to us about the covers. Like, how did you decide what covers you wanted to do, and who did you work with to design those covers?
So this is the original cover for Where the Bluegrass Grows, and I always liked it, but I never loved it. Once I had finished it and I was ready to publish, I was in such a hurry because I was like, it's done. This is
Hmm.
taking me years. Let's just get it out. Let's just get it out. And instead of kind of taking my time and searching for the right cover, I ended up grabbing this one, which my husband took this photo, and he's a fantastic photographer. Don't get me wrong. But um, what you don't see in this photo over here is my sister and my brother in law doing a trash to the dress session after their wedding. But I loved the farm. It's a farm that we used to board our horses at briefly. And so it's just, there's that personal connection with it. And so I said, can we crop them out and do this? And I just wanted like a nice country scene. And so we made it work, but I never really felt like it was right because I felt like I rushed it. But I just kept it because I felt like, at that point I didn't know that I could change it later on. I just kind of felt like maybe I was locked in. So that one stayed for a couple of years. And then when I was ready to publish Kicking On, I reached out to a local photographer that I know, and she shoots a lot of local events, people chasing, fox hunting, that sort of thing. And I said, hey, it's kind of what I'm looking for. Do you have any photos that might fit? And she just kind of sent me an online link to a bunch of different galleries. And as I was clicking through, when I saw this one, I loved the open space up here. The rider. I mean, she's just fantastic equitation.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
it does take place. Like there is some fox hunting in this story, so I just kind of felt like it was really applicable, and it was like instant. I was like, that's my cover. And then same with taking off. The rider, you can't see her face, but she's a local rider. Her name is Courtney Sendak, and she's a local eventer. I follow her on social media, and she posted this after, it was a larger picture, and there was some distance in between. But when she posted it online, I was like, that's it. That's my cover for Erin because Erin is an eventer. And, I was like, this is just perfect. And so at that point, when I was getting ready to do this, I was like, okay, I'm going to give everything a refresh as well. And that's when I decided to give Where the Bluegrass Grows a refresh. Same thing. I follow this photographer on Instagram. Her name is Mary Spear. And she had just posted that picture. And it was just, on her grid. And I messaged her and I said, I think this would be great for my book cover. Can I buy the photo from you? And she said, sure. And so it was just with all of my covers that I, really love, it was just instant. When I saw it, I knew.
Yeah.
And so I kind of gone back and forth about, do I want a horse in every cover? Because I feel my books non-horse people can read and understand and follow along, even though of course they're geared for equestrians. So I didn't want to remove the non-horse people from purchasing it, because there was a horse front and center. But at the end of the day, I just figured, it is about horses, and hopefully have, a non-horse person wouldn't see this cover and still like not go the other way because there's a horse on it. So I don't know. That was kind of for picking all of them. It was just an instant thing where I felt like these are my covers. So
And they're beautiful, and I think they resonate perfectly with your series, and then they match up nicely with each other, and they resonate with your main characters, and that's great. And then you did update the cover to Where Bluegrass Grows in Amazon, and I think there used to be a rumor that if you changed the cover in Amazon that you would have to republish the book and lose your reviews, and that's not the case. You were able to just swap the files, right?
yeah, it was actually really easy. I swapped the files. I think I had to change some of the text inside too because I wanted to give the photo credit to the new photographer.
Hmm.
But even that was simple. it didn't take long at all, but yeah, it was just a quick file swap and nothing changed. I don't think the cover changed in Goodreads, so I'm gonna have to double check that.
Mm-hmm.
But for Amazon, it was instant and no issues. All the reviews are still there. Everything was fine.
That's great to hear because, they actually, the whoever they are, they recommend refreshing or updating your covers ever so often to give the books kind of like a new
Mhm.
life. And you can do that through refreshing the cover. So it's nice to hear that you don't lose any
Right.
of the reviews that you
Yep.
gained on the books, because reviews are very hard to generate, by
Right.
asking readers and reaching out.
Right.
So that's really good news. I love that.
Mhm.
And thank you for sharing that. And then with Goodreads, you actually there it's like managed by librarians. So there's
Oh,
actually, if you look it up, you can actually email a librarian that manages the Goodreads
mhm.
account and they will swap the cover for you. So
Oh, okay.
it's a pretty easy change.
Good to know. Yeah, because I noticed the other day, I don't think it changed because I just figured it would if it was linked to Amazon, it would automatically, but it didn't. So
Yeah,
I was
it'll
like, put that in my brain to get back to that and try to figure that out.
Yeah, actually, I had to do it for Chopin Promise when I
Mhm.
put the third book up there, and I couldn't, for some reason, the cover didn't load. So actually, if you go to my Chopin
Huh.
Promise page, you can see the email that I sent to the librarian, copy it, and use it, and then
Oh, okay.
just do the same thing for in the contact. I think is there too, so you can just do
Perfect.
that easily without having to think too hard. So the
Thank
example's
you.
right there.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
This is the power of authors uniting, making
Yes,
life easier for each other. Uh,
exactly.
yeah. So, I really wanted to ask you about this too. You write equestrian romance for adults like I do. And you
Mhm.
kind of touched on this a little bit about the why you did that, but what does equestrian romance mean to you and why this particular genre for your books?
Mhm. Well, I think, like I said, like I want to write about what I like to read.
Hmm.
And I think I know we aren't the first people to write equestrian romance by any means, but I felt like there just wasn't a lot out there. And then I feel like what was out there was definitely young adult.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, I absolutely still read some young adult stuff. I like, a horse book is a horse book, and there's some fabulous young adult authors out there. But you read this stuff and you're just like, I'm not 16. I really feel like I need something a little more, my speed, something that your average 20, 30, 40 something would pick up and really enjoy and not feel like, it was like kind of high schoolish. So for me, I definitely wanted to keep it 18 and above. And so, there are some romantic scenes. I have some young nieces who were like, I can't wait to read your book. And I'm like, no, not yet.
But it's
I
still
was like, tell,
PG-13. It is
yeah,
romantic, but I don't you by no means went over the top with your romantic scenes, but there's just that little extra oomph
yeah,
that like an 18 plus reader would want to have.
right,
Yeah,
right.
that's
And
cool.
I guess I also just wanted to write a nice, easy read, feel good, like you would take this to the beach, don't have to use a lot of brain power to
Mhm.
read it and enjoy it. And then when you're done, you feel good. There's a lot of, like I said, I'm a big reader and I read all kind of things. And, you know, I love the books that make you think and the books that are, you put down and you're like, what just happened? But at the same time, we're so busy. There's so much going on in this world. It's so nice to just slip away and no drama, easy read. And when you put it away, you feel good. You've got a smile on your face. And especially, I wanted to feel like I had this connection with each of my characters as well.
Mhm.
That and I used to be in a book club, and I remember telling the girls in the club, for me, what makes a really good book is if I really like the main character and I feel like I could be friends with her.
Mm.
Sometimes you read and like the main characters are a little more challenging and you're just like, she's kind of a jerk, like you like her, but you're just like, I don't know if I'd be friends with her. But so like when I feel like I can relate to my characters and I feel like, oh, she and I would be best friends, like that makes me feel good because like I know her, I want to know her. And so like I just wanted to create, some literature that people would feel good when they were done and enjoy and pass along to their friend at the barn, to enjoy as well.
Absolutely. Your books are very satisfying. I always feel very satisfied when I finish reading the books. And what I really like too is that your lead characters are very likable. But I also really like that they're strong women. I
Mhm.
really like that they have powerful friendships with other women.
Mhm.
And I really like that they're, your characters are out there living their dream and trying new things, and like they're like good women and great
Yeah.
examples of women, and how I think women should be all supporting and networking with each
Right.
other and lifting each
Right.
other up and encouraging each other to follow their dreams. So
Mhm.
well done.
Thank you. That was
Yeah.
the intent.
And then, which do you prefer, independent publishing or traditional publishing? I think we kind of already figured out that you're independently published
Mhm.
because you were able to swap your own covers and you designed your own covers. Talk to us
Right.
about why you made the decision to independently publish.
I think, well, to be honest, I didn't even try to publish traditionally. I didn't reach out to anyone. I didn't send any, query letters. I didn't try to get a hold of anyone to represent me or be my agent or whatnot. To be honest, I don't even really know the whole process behind it. I just, going into it, I just knew I was going to self publish and it was just going to be, the path for me. Years ago, when I was working on Where the Bluegrass Grows, but I was nowhere near publishing, I went to it was like a little lunch and learn that my work had put on, and a local author came in and she kind of just spoke to us and he's answered some questions. So, like, all of the readers are there that had gone to this lunch. And her name is Erica Roebuck, and she publishes historical fiction. And she doesn't live too far from me. And at this point, her first novel was self published, and then all of her novels since have been traditionally published. And somebody asked her about like the pros and cons of each. And to be honest with you, I can't remember now what they were. But as she was talking about it, I just kind of felt like self-publishing was for me. Like I was
Mhm.
going to have a little more control over my work. I was going to have a little more flexibility. Maybe I wouldn't make as much, or maybe I wouldn't have as much marketing help as she did with some of her traditional ones. But at the end of the day, it was like that's a lot of hoops to jump through. And so so self-published for me all the way. I guess if I was approached by a publishing house that was like, hey, like, come write your next one with me, like I would think about it, but it's not something that I'm going to pursue or, go after my own and say like, hey, I want to make these connections and try to do this one, this particular avenue next time. I think for me, it's the self-publishing gives me the control I feel I need to get it out there when I want, where I want, and make changes as I see fit, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I like that too about independent publishing is you have a lot of control with
Right.
your intellectual property. You can cover
Right.
them the way you want. We actually do make a little bit higher royalty rates, so you are
Yes.
making more money.
Yep.
So there are pros and cons, and actually a lot of authors, particularly as I've been talking with people on the podcast, are hybrids. So people are
Yep.
doing both, like you said. And
Mhm.
I've already said this before, but I like to equate it to sort of like the indie music movement or the independent film movement, where you independently create these things, and there's a swell of local activity around it, and then often they can become these
Right.
huge successes. So it
Right.
just depends on what's right for you. And what I like about it is being able to have the control, but also not have to work under a deadline. I don't feel like I do my best work when I have to
Yeah.
perform.
Hmm.
I do my best work when I'm creating because I love to be creating. That
Right.
it's a,
Same.
yeah. Okay, I love that. And then this question kind of goes along with it. Is there one common myth about our profession or field that you want to debunk or say, hey, that's not right?
In general, I don't think so, but just among like my family and my friends, there's this. I guess there's this, notion that, oh my goodness, she's an author. She makes so much money. Oh, she's published 3 books. She must be rolling in it. And like like family members have said that, and like close friends who, they don't know the publishing world, have said that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, no, no. Um, for me, this I know there are self-published authors out there making a full-time living on this. Actually, I think I know quite a few of them who do, and that's fantastic. For me, I can't publish quick enough, but
Mm,
I think in order to be able to do that, you need to put out 3 novels a year. That's
mhm.
kind of a guess based on me thinking through what I make on my novels. And so, and then you just have to have just, this volume. You have to have 10 plus novels for people to bounce around to, like once you get your readership and your particular audience. And from a time perspective, I just can't do that. I would love to publish that much and write that much, but I can't do that. So for me, it's 100% a part-time thing.
Mhm.
But so to my family and friends out there, I'm not getting rich on this.
Not yet anyway, but I think you really
That's
touched,
right.
I think you
Right.
really touched on
One
something.
day.
Right. Well, you really touched on something too. It's often the authors that are making a living at being an author often have very deep backlists. So there
Yeah.
are a lot of books for people to consume, because the more books you have, the more money you make, and the more
Mm-hmm.
income streams there are to generate. There's the audiobook, there's the ebook, there's
Exactly.
paperback, there's potential for TV, television,
Right.
movies, what have you. But the more you have,
Exactly.
the more success you have. So you're building an empire slowly.
Yes.
We're building our empires book by
Brick by
book.
brick. Yeah.
Yeah, book by book.
Book by book.
uh, and I wanted to switch gears a little bit too. And you are the woman behind the popular equestrian blog, Maryland Equestrian, and the Maryland Equestrian Instagram channel.
Yes.
When did you realize you wanted to combine your love of horses with starting a blog and then writing books?
Right. So the blog I started in 2011. So it was a long time ago. And initially when I started, um, I had gotten Misty. That's my first off the track there, but I had gotten her a couple years prior, and I wanted to start just kind of like this online journal about our training and her retraining, from racehorse to riding horse and whatnot. And so that's initially how it started. And it was really just focused on me and Misty. And then as things started to change a little bit, I felt like I don't really have anything new to talk about with her training. It changed to just kind of overall equestrian lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I felt like the blog kind of, started to take a little bit more shape with the things I really focused on. I still talked about, my personal horses and what I was doing around the farm and whatnot. But that's when I started doing the book reviews. That's when I would start talking about, equestrian decor and things like that. And it started to take a little bit more shape. So I was always writing in some capacity, whether it was the blog or articles or whatnot. And so for me, like that's just a creative outlet. And that's right around the same time. Yeah, I think for the most part, right around the same time when I started writing what became Where the Bluegrass Grows. And so it was just, if I had time in the evening, I sat down, I would either write a blog post or sometimes I would, try to work on my book or whatever it was at that moment. I wasn't quite sure what it was going to turn into or turn out to be. But so just kind of one kind of led to the other, just, but all from the foundation of wanting to sit down and write something and wanting to create something, whether it was nonfiction, hey, this is what I'm doing with Misty at the moment, or circling back to this book. So it's just my love of writing is what started it all.
Oh, that's so great. I think that's a common thread between a lot of the people that I'm interviewing on the show. I mean, the common threads in our life is a love of writing and a love of horses. And it's just kind of all come together, through the course of our life and opened up all these great possibilities for us.
Right.
And then you also, you are considered an equestrian influencer. You recommend brands, you work with brands, you do product reviews and book reviews. How do you decide what you want to showcase on the Maryland Equestrian, or how do you decide which brands you want to work with?
Well, to be honest, I don't really consider myself an influencer. I think by most standards I am, but it's not something that I had set out to do when I started my Instagram. When I started it years ago, it was just my personal account. I didn't have one. My friends literally grabbed my phone one night and downloaded Instagram and helped me get started. And they're like, "What do you want your name to be?" And at that point, I just named it after my blog. But I kind of joined like totally under duress and then went from there. Like I just started gaining followers and connecting with people, and it was a lot of fun. So it wasn't something I set out to do. And then so as far as I feel like everybody has their niche, with their Instagram and whatnot. And some people focus on riding clothes and apparel, and some people are home decor, that sort of thing. And I feel like at this point, my niche really is books. And
Hmm.
so I get a lot of authors who will reach out to me and say, hey, if I send you a copy of my book, will you review it on your Instagram or your blog or whatnot? And I'm always like, sure. Like if I can help someone, promote their books and their work and get some exposure, I absolutely do. A lot of times I am promoting things that just I like. Like I have not been in touch with authors or anything like that. I don't get paid for any of this. I don't ask for any money. Sometimes I will get products for free, but other than that, I'm not, this is not a job for me. I'm not making any money off of it. As far as other products that I would promote, I typically wait for businesses to contact me because, again, I'm not going out trying to get this type of work. I'm not trying to do this. And so if somebody reaches out to me and it is something that I know I will love and use regularly, I'm so happy to help you. If it's something I feel like I'm not really the right spot for, I'm not really the right fit, I'll actually recommend other influencers that I think might do a better job. For example, I'm not much of a jewelry person.
Hmm.
Like, so I'll get sometimes people will be like, I want to send you this horse ring or this, that, and the other. And it's just like, it's beautiful. I love it, but I'm not a jewelry person. I'm not going to wear it often. And so I think, you'll get more exposure over here and I'll send them somewhere else. But for books, come to me all day long. Um,
Watch out, you're going to get flooded.
yeah, I know, right? And I recently partnered with Red and Goat, which is a technical outerwear company. You don't need this because you live in Arizona, but if you live in a cold weather climate, you absolutely need this. And they sent me one, and it has been a game changer this winter. Basically, it's like a Carhartt suit, but it's just beautiful. It's form fitting. You can ride in it. It's everything that equestrians need. And so
Ooh.
I've been working with them, and again, it's a product that I just love. And so I have to feel like I'm wild about it, if I'm going to actually promote it. But in general, I don't, if I put something on my Instagram, just know I'm crazy about it. So
That's
that's
cool.
kind of how it goes.
So you're 100% authentic and you 100% represent things that you love and that you like. And I love that your, influencer status is like a happy accident just by doing what
Yep.
you love. I think that is so cool. And
Thank you. Yeah, totally has been.
and that's so great. I mean, and then what I love too is thank you for supporting the equine author community
Of
as
course.
well. I know that you've supported my books and,
Hmm.
people, you recommend books and you take pictures with books that you're reading that you
Hmm.
like. And, thank you for that support because I do believe that we are stronger working together because
Yeah.
people who love horses are going to love books about them. And,
Hmm.
whoever likes your book will like my book, will like their book, so we're all kind of
Right.
working together here. And I love that community aspect. So
Oh, absolutely. Hmm.
uh, so you're also, I mean, we talked about your love of writing. You're also a freelance writer too. Um, how did you get into freelance work and like what topics do you like to cover and tell us about the publications that you write for?
Sure. Yeah. So I got into freelance work quite some time ago, and it was just 100%. I just wanted to make some extra money. As you know, horses aren't cheap, and any little extra money I can make just from these little side gigs and freelance gigs, 100% goes into, my horse hobby. Um, I don't have a separate account or anything, but I just know if I pick up this, gig, oh, I can go get those breeches I want, or if I do this, I can afford to do that show. So it was just, extra side money. I reached out to a bunch of publications proactively. I just would email the editor and say, hey, I'm a self published writer, I'm a blogger, and I would just send them my resume, a portfolio, some of my work, some samples, and say, I'd love to write for you if you have any openings. Um, and then, or sometimes I would just submit article ideas, specifically, hey, I think this particular article would work well in your next issue. And sometimes they would respond back and be like, absolutely, let's get started. And other times they would be like, oh, I'll reach out to you if we need you. We're full right now, which is great. I started writing for Horse and Style magazine in 2015, so it's been quite a while now. And I have a couple regular columns with them. I'll bounce around a little bit with what I write about, but typically I always do their horse book reviews.
Mm,
Obviously, that one's
mhm.
my favorite. And then I have a couple other columns that I'll do where I highlight new products. I'll feature equestrian homes or barns, just that sort of thing. And sometimes I'll fill in gaps too with whatever they need at that time. So they're my main freelance clients. I've also written for Sidelines magazine. I've written for Equestrian Living, or it might be EQ Living. It was Equestrian Quarterly. They've rebranded a couple years ago. And then I also wrote for Coverside, which is a magazine for fox hunters.
Ooh.
So yeah, so I've done a little bit, and I've gotten quite a bit in print, which is fun to always see that byline. And then also, as you know, I do some freelance editing as well. So I've had multiple self-published authors come to me to do their last big copy edit before they, hit publish. So I like to do that because then I get the sneak peek. I get to read it before everybody else does, and I
Yes.
feel like I know something great, But also, it's nice to help, the self-published community and work with everybody. So I've done that for a couple years now too.
And I will say, I'm afraid you're going to get flooded here. Laurie is excellent. She copy edits the final versions of my books, and I've sent some other independent
Yes.
equine authors her way.
Yes, you
So
have. Thank
again,
you.
this is a community that supports and takes care of each other, and she does excellent work. Highly recommend.
Thank you.
But I get priority because I
That's
work.
right.
I'm just kidding. No, but you've edited, copy edited my sequel and my third book, and I wish you had copy edited In the Reins. But that was before we knew each other. So
That's right.
and I will continue using you for the life
Thank
of my
you.
books. You
I
provide
appreciate it. Always
wonderful
appreciate the
service.
business.
Yeah, she's very good with catching those last minute things, and you also make recommendations that are very good too for some adjustments. So I really appreciate your work, and
Sure.
I love giving you credit inside my books too, which is
I know.
cool. When you started out on the adventure, between writing your books, starting the blog, having the popular Instagram channel, and then freelancing, is there anything that you wish you had known when you started out about any one of those things in particular?
I wish, as far as publishing the books, I wish that I had been a little braver,
Mm.
I guess. When I first published Where the Bluegrass Grows, I was so petrified. And like petrified is a great word to describe me putting any of my work out into the world. I was so petrified that everybody would hate it, especially if it's your first novel. You don't have like your base support that you get after that. And I was so scared that I gave it life and then I let it die. Like I did nothing. I did virtually no marketing. I did share it on my Instagram a couple of times. I wrote about it on my blog, but like that was it. I did virtually nothing to market it because I was scared. I was afraid if I marketed it and then people actually read it and they hated it, well, all of that hard work would have like felt like for nothing, and it would have broken my heart. So I didn't do anything for for years. Meanwhile, I'm working on Kicking On, and I get to the point where I'm like, okay, you can do this. And I put that one out into the world. And then by the time I did, I had developed a plan for how to market it a little bit better. And so I wish that I was very diligent, and I took my time with that one a little bit more. Whereas Where the Bluegrass Grows, I just published it and I was like, there you go, out into the world, and I'm going to forget about you. But with Kicking On, I knew exactly the influencers that I wanted to send it to, so they would share on their social media channels. I knew which blogs I wanted to reach out to for some PR. I knew, some local events I wanted to do, some local tax shops I wanted to see if I could get them, physical copies in there to try to sell. So I was a little more I guess a little bit more measured with how I put it out there, and I guess a little more confident, and you get that as you get that your base that you feel like is going to be behind you.
Yeah, and it's just the nature of being an author. Like, I thank you so much for sharing that, because I think your experience, you're not alone. I mean, I think that first book is scary for everyone. And then, the hurry up and get it done and publish it into the world rather than taking your time. I think that's also something that
Yes.
a lot of first time authors have experienced, and then they have to go back and make some adjustments and,
Right.
maybe clean up some editing, but that's a hurdle in itself just to get it out there, because that's
Right.
the very first step. I love how you talked about being more confident and being
Mhm.
more ready for the next experience. And you can't write something that everyone's going to love.
Right.
It's like that's just the way it is with books. Like if you look
Mhm.
at Stephen King and J.K. Rowling's or Stephanie
Mhm.
Meyer who wrote Twilight, any of these big authors,
Right.
somebody's bashing their book. It's
Exactly.
just you can't please everyone. You have to write for yourself and then give your book baby life and then let it go
Mhm.
and move, go to the next thing and just keep creating.
And exactly, like writing, music, art, like it's so subjective. Like, I might love it, you might hate it, and that's okay.
I wanted to ask you too. So I thought this was really interesting. So you recently launched a standalone author website under your own name, Laurie
Yeah.
Berglie, in
Mhm.
addition to your blogging site, the Maryland Equestrian. Why did you think it was important? Why do you think it's important for authors to have their own
Mhm.
websites under their own writing name?
Right. I just, again, just like kind of for like the branding recognition of it, I felt like, Maryland Equestrian is a variety of things. It's me talking about my horses. It's me talking about other people's books. It's my books too. It's me talking about what's going on, renovating my farm or whatnot. So it's just a variety of things. And so I thought that maybe I should really kind of zero in for my books. I really need to zero in a little bit, put my name out there, just because, if I am known as Maryland Equestrian, I feel like, if you're going to search for me in my books, you should probably know my name too. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to kind of give my books and my authorship just a home elsewhere that was solely devoted to them.
Well, and that's a really great point that you just made, because that is the recommendation that authors, when they choose their websites, they choose their own name. And then also, like you mentioned this a little bit, and we've kind of danced around the fact that you work with your husband. So I wanted to ask you, uh, when we first met, you had a full time job and you were doing all this in addition to that. So you still have a full time job. But I was wondering, did you ever expect to be able to work for yourself full time as a freelancer, a blogger, an author, and with your husband helping build his company, Be All Inclusive,
Mhm.
and be able to support yourself? Is this like a dream come true for you? Like,
It absolutely is. So my husband and I were just talking about this the other day. Like even as little as like 3 or 4 years ago, we never could have imagined that we would be in the place where we are. So I think when you and I met, I was working from home for a staffing company based in Atlanta. I was working from home. It was great, but it was your typical 9 to 5. I was working in marketing and communications, and I really liked it. And my husband was a full time photographer, and he had started a travel business a couple years prior, and it was just kind of like making some extra income, that sort of thing. Well, then the travel business started to grow, and then he's doing photography and travel, and then like sorry, we start slow down, and the travel starts to pick up, and we specialize in like destination weddings, large groups, things like that. But we can also book, individual travel as well. And then it got to a point a couple of years ago where he's just like, I need to hire someone, and I would prefer it to be you. That way we could work together. But so we kind of crunched numbers, and sure enough, I left my 9 to 5 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, to work full time with him with the travel company. And I have to be honest, like I was nervous, like financially, could we do it? Was our marriage going to suffer? Because we lived together, worked together, always together.
oh
I think
yeah.
a lot of people would struggle with that. A lot of relationships would struggle with that. But we've done really well. I think the key is he has his own office downstairs. I have my own office here. We have our own space. And then within the business itself, we have our own responsibilities. He's really focused on like the sales side. I'm focused on more of like the day to day operations. We're actually just getting ready to hire our first employee. She's going to start in March. And so, things have grown to that point where, it's time to bring on some additional help. And so we are, I mean, to say that we like, are thankful and blessed and all of like, I can't get over it. And I keep thinking like, you know, 10 years ago, Laurie would be looking at current day Laurie and being like, oh my God, you're living the dream. I'm so excited. I can't wait to get, because it's everything I wanted to work from home, be here. Like I'm looking outside right now. I see Bailey grazing in the field and it's just, there's nothing like that.
Yeah.
And it gets a little isolating sometimes to have everything here at home. I kid you not. Like sometimes I will go 5, 6 days without leaving the house, like because I have nowhere to go. I work from home. My animals are at home. So sometimes we'll just get out and take a drive just to get out of the house. But it's just to be able to be in control of your business, in your work, in your income. It's a very exciting feeling, but also very scary too. We work so hard and so many hours because if you're self-employed, you're afraid to say no. You got to say yes to everything because this could all dry up tomorrow. You just have that constant mentality to say yes, 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 and you tend to take on too much. But there's no guarantee that business is going to continue. So you just always feel like you're kind of overdoing it. But at the same time, very satisfying to watch something you built grow and kind of take off. So
That
no regret. Love every day.
that is so cool. And I will also link to the Be All Inclusive Instagram channel
Yep.
in your show notes because you manage that channel and your husband takes the pictures, and it's a really
Yeah.
cool travel channel with really beautiful
Thank
photography.
you.
So I'll give you a
Thank
little prop there. And congratulations. I mean, that is really cool. And that is honestly living the dream. I mean, I'm so excited and happy for you. And
you.
it was a side gig for a while that ended up growing into this. So like
For a long time.
how many years would you say that it took to build momentum for the
hmm
travel company to be able to stand on its own legs?
I think so. We were talking about this the other day. Actually, he started in 2012, and then I think he was basically full time. Kind of had started to leave his photography by like 2017. So about 5 years for
Mm,
it to totally sustain him.
mhm.
And then we had decided when in the travel business, we got to the point where it could replace my income, then it was time for me to leave my job. And so that took another year or so because I left my job in early 2018.
Mhm.
So all in all, it took 6 years to grow full time enough to support both of us. And that was, to be honest, initially it was very part time, and he didn't put a whole lot of effort into it because he was still doing his full time photography. So it just kind of, and it really was sort of a follow the money sort of thing. Like,
Mm,
because he loved photography, I really liked my marketing job, and it was just, but of course we love travel too, and it was
mm.
just one of those things where as it's growing, you follow the money, and we're like, okay, this is really picking up momentum. Let's kind of refocus, and that's what we did, and it's been 2 years supporting both of us. So
That's great. And it sounded like you really did smart moves. You didn't
hmm
jump the gun, you built it before you
yes,
decided, and then you made smart decisions about where to focus your energy. So, I
right,
mean, that's
yes,
really making smart decisions is like 99% of being an entrepreneur. So it sounds like
right,
you
yeah,
were doing that correctly. And
yeah.
that's great.
Thank you
Um,
for asking those questions though, because I have to say, I get a lot of questions on Instagram where people will message me and they'll say, "Do you work?" Because like I do post about my horses and stuff in the middle of like a Tuesday afternoon, and they're like, "Shouldn't she be at work?" It's like, yes, I do work. It's like I just work from home. So sometimes I like have to remind people like, yes, I do work. I have a job. Because people just see, you see like, hey, I'm posting at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday and I'm
mhm.
riding, and they're like, whoa, must be nice. And I'm just like, no, no, no. I will be working after this, and I worked before that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've just designed your life to be able
Right,
to have the freedom to do
right,
all these things in addition to your full-time job.
right,
You may work more, but you can go ride your horse at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and
right,
post on Instagram. You can
right.
work early, you can work late, you can sleep in if you don't feel well and
Mhm,
then work later. And I think
exactly.
that kind of freedom is what we would all like to have more of.
Yeah.
So good on you for figuring out a way to make that work for you. What are you curious about right now? Like, what are you exploring?
So I can answer that question a lot of different ways. I'm curious about everything. From a author perspective, I'm a little curious about where to go next. If you are out there and you have read all 3 of my books, get in touch with me because I want to pick your brain. Yes, I have so many different ideas. I'm just trying to kind of dial down to see like what my readers really want to see. Do they want to see book 4? Would they rather see me go down a different path with a different series? Do they want to see the short? I am working on a short story collection, but I would like that to come next. But I'm just kind of curious what characters you liked, which ones you didn't, that sort of thing, just so I can really, I write for my readers. And so I want to make sure I'm writing about something that they want to read about. On a personal level, I'm curious about time management. I published Taking Off in November, and I don't think I've written much since then, just, from a time perspective, it's been tough. And so I really, I'm curious about what I can do to make time for everything, and that's hard to do, and typical work-life balance things.
So as a reader and lover of all 3 of your books, like I'm actually pretty excited about book 4. But of course I'll read anything that you do read. I want to know what happens next for Erin, because I'm just
okay.
And I was like, tell me what happens next. But it also sounds like you're already taking steps towards achieving that goal of looking at ways to create more work-life balance and time management, because you are hiring that third person. So it sounds like you're taking steps in a way to ease some of that stress on your time, which is really great. And that's good. It's all goals, and it's all like, what is the next situation that life is going to put in front of me that I need to figure out how to handle. There's no problems. There's just situations to manage, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And, I so love this conversation, and I enjoyed having you in the show, and I know we're going to be friends for a long time, and you're going to work on my next book, which is coming soon. And, we support each other, and you're awesome. You elevate other equine authors through the Maryland Equestrian, and then also, your freelance work. So can you share with people where they can find you and your books?
Yes. Sure. Absolutely. So my books are on Amazon. Search for my name, Laurie Berglie, or you can search for any of the titles. They are paperback and ebook. There's links on my website that will link to Amazon, so laurieberglie.com, themarylandequestrian.com, and then you can find me and more information about me and my books and whatnot at Maryland Equestrian on Instagram.
And I will link to all those places in the show notes so people can get to you easily. Laurie, thank you so much for being on the show today. I always enjoy talking with you.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I hope you enjoy these Q&A sessions with wonderful equine authors who love all things horses and riding, just like me. Visit my website, carlycadecreative.com, where you can read the show notes, and make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you so much for your support. Want a free guide to secrets of horsebook authors? Gallop over to carlycadecreative.com/wisdom to have author advice delivered instantly to your inbox. If you are an author who writes about horses and would like to be spotlighted, please let me know. Visit my contact page at carlycadecreative.com to fill out a request. I'd be happy to have you on the show too. Thank you for tuning in to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. See you next time. I'm your host, Carly Kade. Creative writing makes my spurs jingle.